2022 has come to an end, which means it's time to look back at all of the fantastic games that came out this year and decide which are my personal favorites. This year had a lot of really great games. There were so many amazing experiences from a variety of different genres, franchises, and platforms. I feel like I was constantly playing new stuff this year trying to keep up with all the current game releases, but I still wasn't able to play everything I wanted to. God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Sifu, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are just a few of the titles I wish I could have found time to play. And as always, I played a bunch of older games for the first time, including Metroid Prime 1 and 2, Undertale, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, the first Halo game, God of War 2018, and most recently I've been playing a lot of Persona 5 Royal and loving it. Now let's get into my ranking for all the new 2022 games I played this year. Remember that this is all just my personal opinion, and I guarantee you'll disagree with something. And with all of that out of the way, here are my top 15 games of 2022. Another year, another Mario sports game at the bottom of my list. Mario Strikers Battle League is a pretty disappointing new entry into the amazing Strikers series. This game is really strange because in some ways it's the best Mario sports game on Switch, specifically when it comes to the visual polish and depth of gameplay. But in other ways, it's the weakest one yet. There's hardly any content at all, not even the bare-bones single-player story mode that Mario Golf and Tennis had. I rolled credits within an hour and a half, as the tournament mode thing is hardly even a mode at all. The arenas also feel a lot smaller and less interesting when compared to Mario Strikers Charged, and I really miss the sidekick system too. I love all the amazing animations that the characters have, but there isn't nearly enough content to justify the $60 price tag. Plus all the free update stuff sucks too. After all this time waiting for a follow-up to Strikers Charged, it sadly didn't even come close to being as good. Kirby's Dream Buffet is a pretty small game when it comes to content, but luckily for once Nintendo actually priced this game reasonably at $15, and it still has more stuff to do than Battle League. It's basically a simple party game that you can play online, with really fun modes and unlockables. Racing to collect strawberries in these gorgeously themed environments while trying to become the biggest Kirby is super entertaining and replayable, with chaotic item balancing that makes things even better. I love the fast pacing of matches, where the second you finish one task, the game immediately launches you into the next one. It's a mad dash to the end for everyone, keeping you on your toes the whole time. But sadly, when I went back to get the gameplay for this video, I couldn't find a single online opponent. Maybe I just tried at a bad time, but it feels like this game has lost most of its players since it was released, which is a shame because it's not nearly as fun against AI opponents. Sonic Frontiers is the first Sonic game I've really gotten into, as I've only briefly tried this franchise in the past. And while this game is actually a lot of fun, it's also pretty unpolished and messy at times. Running around giant open areas at super high speeds is great, and the platforming is very satisfying once you get used to it. But there are parts of this game that are pretty rough. Some of the boss fights are barely even playable at times, and it's really easy to break the game unintentionally. Some of the later areas have these sections in the open world that suddenly change into 2D, and there's nothing you can do to get out of it, which always annoyed me when I accidentally stumbled into them. There's also some pretty bad pop-in at times. But all of those issues aside, I can't help but have fun flying through fields as Sonic. I just can't put it any higher due to its many problems, but it definitely seems like a step in the right direction for this series.
The Force will be with you.
LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga would have absolutely blown me away like 8 years ago, but now that I'm a boring adult, the LEGO magic doesn't work quite as well. The visuals are stunning in this game. The way they recreated these iconic worlds from Star Wars history is super awesome, and combining 9 movies into just one game is crazy. But at its core, it's still just a LEGO game, which I've played way too many of at this point. The puzzles feel like homework instead of anything meaningful, and the highly detailed hub worlds sadly come at the cost of good level design, as most of the levels just take place in these open areas. This is still probably the best LEGO game they've ever made, and it's a dream come true for any hardcore Star Wars fan. The amount of characters and stories represented here is truly impressive. Playing through all the legendary moments from the movies yourself feels fantastic. Pokemon Legends Arceus finally takes the Pokemon franchise in a new direction, something that's been needed for a while. And while it's still a little rough around the edges, Legends Arceus delivers a fresh new Pokemon experience that's unlike anything else that's come before. Exploring these massive open areas full of Pokemon is so much fun, and actually aiming to throw a Pokeball feels fantastic. There's some changes to the turn-based combat that add an extra layer of strategy, which is great, and you can even walk around during battles, which is pointless but still fun for some reason. There's also some pretty cool Pokemon mounts you can ride around on, and the main village hub area is awesome too. But the story didn't really do much for me, as there was way too much boring dialogue to click through, and there's some pretty badly designed dungeons too. This was the only open-world Pokemon game I played this year, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And if I ever do end up buying Scarlet and Violet, hopefully they've had a chance to fix all the performance issues. Tunic is inspired by classic 2D Zelda games, but it also does plenty to form its own unique identity. It can get pretty challenging at times, both in terms of combat and exploration. There's almost no directions at all in this game, so it's up to you to figure everything out. Even the in-game instruction manual is in an unknown language, so you have to try and piece things together using pictures and context clues. It can be slightly frustrating when you don't know what's going on, but it feels so rewarding when you finally solve this game's many challenges. By the end of the game, Tunic basically turns into a straight-up horror game, and it had me on the edge of my seat gripping the controller all the way to the credits. The music is such a big part of what makes this game feel so unique, and I love the atmosphere the soundtrack and sound design create. I think I prefer my games to have just a little bit more guidance than what this game is, but it's still a memorable experience that impressed me consistently. Live Alive was technically released on the SNES in 1994, but it hadn't made its way overseas until this year with the new HD 2D remake. I'm pretty unfamiliar with JRPGs, but even I can tell that this one does things differently. Instead of having one main story you play through, there are 7 vastly different stories you can choose from and play through in any order, each taking place during a different time in history. Each story is relatively short and only takes a couple hours to beat, so it feels like you're always progressing and seeing new stuff. The visuals look fantastic, and the writing and voice acting is pretty solid as well. And holy crap, the music is incredible. So many amazing songs that sound terrific with a more modern approach. Its turn-based combat is really unique too, and it never got too frustrating or annoying for me. Things do get a little too drawn out for my taste near the end of the game, but overall this is a fantastic package. Lil Gator Game is a very relaxing and simple indie game focused on exploration and pure childlike fun. It feels very similar to a short hike, where you're just kind of walking around and existing in this pleasant world. It also has that feeling of constant distraction, where you're always getting drawn to new areas by pure curiosity. The movement is surprisingly great. Jumping, gliding, and sliding around the open world feels really good. All the enemies are made of cardboard and don't fight back, so it's really just about exploring the big island and interacting with all the people hanging around. There's some really clever writing and funny jokes, so it was always a joy to talk to everyone. This game is basically just a playground for you to mess around in, with fun items that make things even crazier. I loved playing this game, but I 100% completed everything there is to do in a little over 3 hours, and after that there's basically nothing to do. But Lil Gator Game is a perfect example of how great chill and relaxing indie games can be. Nintendo Switch Sports is kind of a mixed bag. I'm an absolutely massive Wii Sports fan, so finally getting a new entry in this series should be the best thing ever. But Switch Sports changes so much that it hardly even feels like a Wii Sports game. Sportsmates instead of Mii's, Spoko Square instead of Woohoo Island, and a new focus on online play. The 6 sports included at launch are all really solid, but it's just not enough content. Getting sports like golf added later is cool, but it feels really strange to play a Wii Sports game that's still being finished with updates. Although I don't love the approach to item progression, the character and gear customization is pretty awesome, but grinding sports online for points to earn gear gets old pretty quickly, especially with the amount of time required. I've put over 75 hours into this game just getting the items I want, and I've still missed out on plenty. Maybe if this game was a 25 to 30 hour experience where you could simply purchase the items you want from a shop, I wouldn't feel as frustrated. But I really do enjoy the core gameplay of Switch Sports, and it has great visuals and music too. I know it's weird to put this game so high on the list since all I do is complain about it, but don't underestimate how much I love this series and its gameplay. For me, this is a very low placement for a brand new Wii Sports game. Stray is a game where you play as a cat in a futuristic and dystopian world full of robots and dirty streets, with gorgeous visuals and a great sense of atmosphere. The platforming is simple but still enjoyable, and the gorgeous set pieces you explore are amazing. This is seriously one of the best looking games I've ever played, and playing as a cat just makes it so much better. Seeing the world from the viewpoint of this small cat is a really cool experience, and it gives everything a sense of scale that I haven't really seen before. I got surprisingly connected to the robot characters of this world, and the ending was a beautiful send-off and a fitting end to the story. I love these sorts of intensely story-focused games, where it feels like you're controlling a movie. I also loved the small moments, like taking a nap on this pillow while a robot man plays you a chill tune. I would believe you if you told me that this is a AAA game, and the fact that it's a debut title for an indie studio makes it even more impressive. Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope is an improvement over the original in almost every way. The worlds are bigger, the combat is better, and the music is even more catchy. Being able to freely run around a limited area during combat is a super unique and interesting approach that I've never seen done before, and it adds a little bit of real-time strategy and platforming into the mix, which I love. In the later hours of the adventure, there were some enemy types that were just plain annoying, like being able to lock your ability to use your weapon and drawing you in from super far away, but other than that, the combat felt pretty fair. The story isn't anything too crazy, but the cutscenes are animated so well that I enjoyed them anyway. And I cannot stress enough just how incredible the music is. There's seriously too many good songs that don't play for long enough. It feels like the game is rushing to try and fit all these amazing themes into each area. I'm still not the biggest fan of the Rabbids, but they didn't annoy me too much here, and the Mario characters shine as always. The new voice acting is kind of strange though. I still don't know if I like the voice they gave to Beepo.
I don't care what the odds are, right, Mario?
But overall, this is one of the best Mario RPGs I've played, and it's probably the closest we'll ever get to a Super Mario Galaxy 3. Elden Ring is the game winning all the big awards this year, and for good reason. I'd never played a Souls game before this one, and I was thoroughly impressed by what this game offers, even though it isn't what I prefer personally. The open world is massive and stunning, with distinct environments that are bursting with creativity. There are so many delightfully gross enemy and boss designs, alongside tons of weapons and playstyles. I'm still not a big fan of the brutal difficulty, but luckily there are a few support options like summons to help out. There isn't much of a story besides deeply hidden lore, which works for other people but doesn't do much for me. I totally understand why others are choosing this as their #1 game of the year, and even though there were other games this year that I enjoyed more, I can't deny how truly game-changing Elden Ring is. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is Kirby's long-awaited jump into 3D, and he pulled it off beautifully. Basically every level in this game was a joy to play through, with copy abilities and mouthful modes that made the movement so much more fun. There are some surprisingly intense boss fights, with the final boss being the highlight of the whole game. I also love the abandoned aesthetic of the world Kirby is running through, where there's torn down buildings overrun with greenery and life. The music is also terrific, with a sort of bouncy energy that matches the gameplay perfectly. Everything about this game is basically just pure happiness in the form of a small little pink round guy who always has a smile on his face. I hardly ever 100% complete platforming games since there's so many little collectibles, but I was enjoying Forgotten Land so much that I just kept on playing until I got everything there was to get. I can confidently say that Kirby and the Forgotten Land is now one of my favorite 3D platformers of all time, which isn't an easy thing to accomplish. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is basically the best case scenario for this franchise. It manages to combine the best aspects of both the original and the sequel into one experience while still making everything feel natural and make sense in the story. The world design and exploration of the Xenoblade series is unmatched, and this game continues that trend confidently. The world of Ionios is full of breathtaking sights and awe-inspiring vistas, with gorgeous music to accompany you as you explore. The story is also great, fixing most of the problems I had with the second game while creating new memorable and likable characters. And while I didn't love all the decisions they made with the narrative, there were still plenty of moments that blew me away with the way they were executed. The combat is also the best it's ever been. Chaining together attacks feels awesome. I do think things can get a little too messy on screen at times where there's 1,000 things going on at once, but actually controlling it always makes sense and feels good. Overall, I still think the original Xenoblade is my personal favorite, but the fact that this game managed to come even close is amazing. Xenoblade just has a certain vibe thanks to its world design, characters, and music that can only be described as magical. Splatoon 3 is a fantastic evolution of the Splatoon series, taking everything that worked about the previous two games and making it even better. The movement and shooting feels more refined and precise, with new weapon types that are a ton of fun to use, and the new lobby system is a huge upgrade too. The single-player story mode was everything I wanted it to be and more, with creative level design and an awesome overworld full of secrets to find and fuzzy ooze to clear out. And the final act of this game has quickly become one of my favorite final boss encounters of all time. The soundtrack is also just incredible, and I love the way it's presented as in-universe artists. But most of all, the thing I love about Splatoon 3 is the world it creates. Splatsville is a place I just want to spend time in, buying new weapons and clothes, playing tons of online matches and trying to rank up in anarchy battles, and getting together with the whole community to celebrate each new Splatfest. More than any other game this year, Splatoon 3 created a smooth and enjoyable experience that I kept coming back to in between playing other games. For me, this is the perfect online game that I'll continue playing long after this year is over, and it's my pick for the best game of 2022. And that's my list for the best games of 2022. Looking back on all of it, there were so many great games, and I had a blast playing all of them. I'm sure some of my opinions might seem strange to you guys, but I tried my best to represent how I feel about each game. Over the past couple years, I've really made an effort to play as many games in as many different genres as possible, and this year is a great example of how rewarding that can be. 15 new games was honestly a lot to play through in 1 year, and in 2023 I might end up playing less than that. Now that I've shared all my opinions, I want to hear yours. Be sure to leave a comment sharing what your favorite games of 2022 were. And as always, thanks for watching and supporting all the videos I've made this year. I feel like 2022 was my best year yet. Looking onward to 2023 is pretty exciting, with big games like Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin 4 on the horizon. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.